Regular viewers of this show know I keep coming back to this idea of the North American energy renaissance. One of the 7 big long-term themes I write about in Get Rich Carefully. And the reason I keep hammering this story home is very simple. It's made you a lot of money. And I think a lot of these domestic oil stocks have a tremendous runway ahead of them. Take Carrizo Oil and Gas, symbol CRZO. This is a smallish $2.5 billion exploration and production, or E&P company, that's been drilling in some of the hottest shale plays in the country. Terrific acres in the Eagle Ford Shale in Texas, Niobrara in Colorado, Utica in Ohio, yes, we visited that one, right? And the Marcellus in Pennsylvania. The company used to have some less sexy assets, including acreage in the Barnett Shale, but they sold off their non-core properties last year in order to raise funds to drill in some of the smoking hot plays I just mentioned. I got to tell you, Carrizo is putting up some truly incredible numbers here. Company reported back on May 6th, delivering a 7-cent earnings beat off a 54-cent basis, higher than expected revenues that rose 27% year over year. If you adjust for the sale of those Barnett Shale assets I just mentioned, Carrizo posted an astounding 48% increase in overall production. They're really starting to ramp up the Eagle Ford and the Niobrara, which is why the company's forecasting an amazing 54% increase in oil production for 2014. That is huge, especially since oil should account for 60% of Carrizo's total production. No wonder this genuine growth stock has given us a magnificent 54% gain since we last spoke to the CEO in September and pushed it really hard to you. And even up here, Carrizo's only selling for 14.5 times next year's earnings estimates, which is absurdly cheap given this monster production growth. So let's check in with Chip Johnson, the president and CEO of Carrizo Oil and Gas, find out more about how his company's doing and where it is headed. Mr. Johnson, welcome back to Mad Money.
Thank you, Jim. Glad to be here.
All right, Chip, most of the companies that are showing your growth are extending their balance sheets, and you're always worried they're going to do an equity offering. You're giving us unbelievable growth, and at the same time, you're shoring up your balance sheet. How are you able to do that?
Well, as you mentioned, we were able to sell off some of our gassy assets at a very good price last year, and that let us then redeploy that capital into higher rate of return oil projects in the Eagle Ford and the Niobrara. So we grew EBITDA twice as fast as we kept CapEx at about the same level.
Well, Chip, I got to tell you, I'm kind of mixed about trying to figure out, after Eagle Ford, which I know is amazing for you, whether you want to put more dollars in Utica or Niobrara, because they both seem good, but it does seem like Utica, you're very excited about the acres you have there in Ohio.
That's true. We have drilled, we think, one of the best condensate wells in the Utica. At least that's what the midstream players tell us. And we'll drill our next one in about a month. We won't have results until the fall, but so far we've been ecstatic about how well that well did. It was still producing 410 barrels of condensate per day when we shut it in after 113 days. So it's already above the oil type curve we expected. We're getting excellent prices for condensate in Ohio. I think we're getting something like 7% or 93% of NYMEX. So with that kind of income stream, that could be a really big play. The Niobrara is a great play too. It's just, it might be 10 or 20% lower internal rate of return than the Utica, and right now we know it's less than the Eagle Ford.
Okay, our viewers probably aren't that familiar with the condensate. So if you can just tell us what the actual stuff that's coming out of the ground is. I know you got a cap right now, but what it will be, and then where it's going and what it's made into. That will make it come alive more for people who are really trying to understand the story.
In the Utica, there are different regions. Some produce nothing but dry gas. Some make wet gas with natural gas liquids, and where we are primarily makes condensate. And the condensate is 50 to 60 gravity API condensate, which almost looks like water. It's extremely light, volatile. The refiners like it because they can blend it with heavier crudes and end up with a better feedstock for their refineries. So we've been selling everything we make so far to Marathon, who of course has plenty of refineries in the mid-continent.
All right, so go back to Niobrara for a second. This is in Colorado, and I still find that when I mention it to people, they haven't heard of it. But this really is a bountiful area. Now, you did mention that you think that the return may not be as good. Is that because your acreage is so great in Utica? Because I love where you are in Colorado.
Well, there are areas in the Niobrara that are as good as anything we're in. It's just that it's more varied. You can go 5 miles in one direction and the rate of return drops to 50% instead of 100%. Both are good, but when you have the Eagle Ford as your baseline, you get spoiled. So that's why we'd like to learn more about the Niobrara. We're in several downspacing tests right now. We're testing multiple layers with Whiting and Noble, and we're all going to know a lot more about this play in another 3 to 6 months.
All right, Chip, what is it about the Eagle Ford? I mean, is the Eagle Ford just I know we've been talking lately about the Permian, but I keep circling back to Eagle Ford as being maybe the great field in our country.
It's the best field I've ever worked on. What the Permian has over it is more layers, but the Eagle Ford in the sweet spots is very thick, porous, good quality crude, high rates. There's nothing around to get in the way. We're on some big ranches in South Texas. We have good logistics in terms of water disposal, water sourcing, access to pipelines, trucking, refineries. It's just a really easy, great play with good results.
Well, Chip, you've done a remarkable job, and I hope you know that we've been behind you all the way, and it's been a huge winner for us. Thank you so much for coming on Mad Money.
Thank you, Jim. Proud to be here.
Thank you. All right, that's Chip Johnson, President and CEO of Carrizo Oil and Gas. Remember, we think these mid-sized companies often represent the greatest value because they've got the most explosive growth, and Carrizo's got about the best growth I've seen. Don't move. Lightning Round is next.